Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Here's your look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, the Collect and Connect Darkfather. Darkfather used to be the Batman of his world, and defeated the evil god Darkseid before taking his powers and acquiring a skin like him. He also gained mastery over the anti-life equation, and altered the parademons of Apocalypse into the Para-Robins, outfitting them with uniforms matching that of his sidekick Robin. He later retired after handing over the power of the anti-life to the Superman of his world, but he joined the Batman Who Laughs Dark Knights in order to invade Earth-Zero under a pact with Perpetua. Before we get the review started for the Collect and Connect Darkfather, the first thing that we do, that we always do here on this channel at this time and place, is that we first figure out how tall the figure stands. Now, I could just look at the figure and try to guess for myself how tall it would be, but you guys want exact numbers. No better an exact number than to pull it from my digital tape measure here. So the first step in this, in a two-step process, step one is taking this to the very top of his head. Step 2 is regurgitating it to you, the viewing audience, that Darkfather, the Collect and Connect figure from DC Multiverse, is 8.1 inches in height. We can switch that over to centimeters, and I suppose a third step in all of this, for those that want to measure their figures and statues in centimeters, then yes, I would regurgitate again and tell you viewers that the figure is 20.7, so it's a little over 20.5 centimeters tall. To further drive home the point of how tall this figure actually stands, it probably would be a good time and place to bring in some other figures we can do for some comparisons, and what better figures to bring in than, well, the other figures that were part of the Darkfather wave. Starting first with what I felt to be a pretty high note, we had a look at the Robin King. I really like this figure, even though, yes, a lot of the mold is brought from that other Robin over, but the darker color scheme, not to mention that head sculpt, is fantastic. Then we sort of dropped a few points when we had a look at this Batman right here. It wasn't for the fault that it was a bad-looking Batman, but just, again, the fact that we double-dipped this figure so quickly from the last time we had gotten him. I really think they should have filled this slot with a different character and not just give us that same Batman. If you never picked up that first Batman, then yes, you would have been fine and set with a really nice sculpted Batman. But to already have that other figure soured my feelings of that one just a little bit. We then also had a look at Superman. Not a bad-looking figure. There's a few little talking points, of course, I mentioned in the review of him. The wrist joint on the Darkseid-inspired arm on the one side, and his head sculpt is sort of underwhelming. But then we wrapped up the reviews on a very high note again, looking at a really nice-looking Wonder Woman. So again, like, this set was highs and lows. But even the lows aren't low points at all. They end up being good-looking figures with a few little things I probably would have done differently to them. Now, because Darkfather is a Collect and Connect figure, it means there's a couple of things that unfortunately we have to check off that aren't going to come included with them. The first one being a display stand. The second one being a trading card. A trading card would have been nice to come include with this figure, but because, again, the nature of the fact he's being built from other figures, it would make some sense that he's not going to come include with a trading card. The other thing he doesn't come with that I'm kind of disappointed by is that he doesn't come include with any accessories. I wouldn't expect him to come include with a Para-Robin. That would be probably set aside for a standalone release, and I would definitely be on board getting probably 2 or 3 Para-Robins to be displayed along with him. But it would have been nice if he could have included something other than what we're seeing right here. With that being said, of course, let's get a closer look at the figure, and in order to do that, let's go ahead and pick him up and getting a closer look at the details. I'll tell you right out the gate, there's a few things that I don't like about this figure, and it's more so from the construction standpoint, and it's more so around the cape. Still, the plug on the back has still remained generally secure, actually. It feels like it's really stuck into the back of his torso. I wish the same could be said, actually, for the front piece. The idea is that this little piece that we've already looked at when we were building this guy is supposed to sit inside of that opening. You see right there. That little plug is supposed to fit on the inside of that square, that rectangle right there. But it doesn't, and it doesn't stay well enough in place. Every time that I've tried to move Darkfather around, especially when we get to the figure's articulation, you'll probably see this is going to be popping off. In fact, just left to its own devices, it looks like it's already starting to pop off. At least the cape isn't going to go anywhere, at least. One good thing is he does have this rather ugly-looking mug that's keeping his cape from falling right off of his torso. I like this head sculpt quite a bit. A combination, of course, of Darkseid and Batman. I've got a little bit of paint, unfortunately, on one of his yellow eyes. under certain ways that you're looking at it, it kind of looks like he's got one eye that's staring right at you. But it's something, of course, I wanted to note. I like the head sculpt in the way that they've wrinkled the top of the eyebrows, giving him a nice furrowed brow. Even when you really look at it up close and personal, do you ever now see all this additional sculpting that they put just to the cowl alone? Of course, when we come to the lower half, the visible face of Batman, you've got all those cracks and stuff that normally would go along with Darkseid. And really, the gray works quite well. I like that they used a darker gray for his bottom lip. I'm not sure where his top lip has gone. It's sort of just vanished. But instead, they've given him just a line to indicate where that top lip will be. Really, though, like the head sculpt there. When we look at the cape, I know I already talked about the problems I had with the cape not really staying properly onto his torso. I kind of wish in a way that the cape would have been a different, probably plastic, because this obviously wouldn't have been painted. It's not the same color as the rest of his torso, or the rest of his cowl piece here. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be the case where it's supposed to be the same color, but especially when you see it from the front, it does stand out. I kind of wish that this would have been the same color. I don't know what they would have done differently. It probably would have then involved them having to paint all the plastic instead of just using the molding of it. So that would have been some additional cost. But I wish that the cape was not even sculpted the same, but just if it was more matte color, because you can see it's a lot more reflective when you're seeing it. Speaking of reflecting, you can't help but also notice the fact that he's got really shiny looking arms. Something that bothered me initially, but then again when I'm looking at the figure, this is only the armor piece of his body. These are just his bare arms. So of course it would make some sense that they're not going to be the same sheen as the torso piece. There is, though, one point I want to talk about. It's this area right here. I would assume, I would guess, that this should be the same color plastic as this up here. This looks like they've just used the plastic itself, while up here may look like they've actually painted it. But it does seem like the two don't quite jive together. I can justify the fact that the arms aren't going to be the same as the rest of his body, because again, this is costume, this is going to be costume down here. But at the very least, I think the lower torso, the mid-torso, I suppose, should have probably been at least the same color as the rest of his upper torso. I like the bat emblem, that's a nice touch. It kind of has like a leather look to it. Little rivet points there on the openings of his sleeves are also nice touches there as well. Just this kind of throws me off a little bit. He does have sculpting, as you can see, on his arms. This will cause some problems when it comes to his articulation, because in order to bend his elbow, you sort of have to go in there and torture yourself to pricking. I have to kind of get my fingers in between the two rows of spikes just so I can actually get access to his elbow. But if you are picking this figure up for yourself or building it after the 4 figures that you have already bought, you probably already know what I'm dealing with here. The pain, the torture of me just trying to bend his elbow. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Further down on the figure, you can see a nice looking utility belt, looking like a canvas material. It's a nice light, kind of brownish beige. Really like how that looks. I like also that the pockets seem different from one another. Even the one that you can see on the inside, they go small, large. They seem to alternate their size. I like that. A little bit lower down, you've got Darkseid Batman's lower underoos with some additional riveted areas there on top of the blue. And then from there, you've got the texturing done to his legs and also into his boots as well. He's a well-sculpted looking figure. If anything, I probably could just say there's a few little things, little hiccups here along the ways. But they're not big. They're not things that would really ruin the figure. The biggest one, I guess, being is really the peg point right here. I could fix that. I'm resourceful enough. I could probably find even glue. I really don't want to talk glue because I always feel like I should be handing in my collector's card, but glue may be the way I'm going to go and just glue that into place so I'm not have to worry about that every single time. The coloring of the cape would have been nicer if it was a little bit closer to the coloring of his cowl, and of course the coloring of his midriff area. His abdomen area would have been nice if it was a closer color to the coloring of the gray that's above it. But the rest of the figure does look quite nice on display. So let's run through the articulation on this guy. His head rotates all the way around. You can hinge it up, you can hinge it down, and you can also rock it back and forth. Sometimes, though, while you are rocking it back and forth, this happens to me a lot, just pop the head back into place. It seems like it does a good enough job of staying onto the ball peg until you start hinging the head back and forth, and as you can already see, it sort of starts freeing itself from the top of that ball peg. The upper torso is on a very nice relaxed ball joint, so you can rotate that all the way around. Again, I just wish the coloring of his abdomen was just a little bit lighter, just closer to this. but does rotate all the way around. He does also have a secondary ball joint at the base, which is actually hidden just behind the utility belt. I really feel like I want to bring this around. It doesn't seem like it's completely straight. Could be the abdomens that's throwing it off to me. Doesn't kind of look like the buckle's just a little off to the side. Anyways, as for his arms hinge out. Because of the size of his arms, that's not 100% true. This one arm is really tight, and yet it's like the odd couple. The other arm is really loose. Wish we could kind of meet in the middle here. The arms move forward and back, and again, you can bring them out at a 90-degree angle bend. He has a swivel at the bicep, just really tight on this side, and yet so loose in the shoulders. Then again, you have to get to the elbow, so we'll just kind of get our thumb in between there, bend the elbow. You can see he's got the hinge going on there. There goes the cape again. He has the hands that rotate all the way around, and you can also hinge them back and forth. At least they're not obnoxious-looking ball pegs, similar to what we saw with the Superman. Really, it's so jarring again when we go back and look at that Superman, why they chose that particular ball peg. Anyways, let's fix the cape here before we resume with the rest of this review. The legs split out. You can also, again, bring the legs forward and back. They do also drop down. Does that make sense what I'm saying? In other words, you can bring the legs up like that, or you can bring them down a little bit just to give them a little bit extra mileage. Just like that. Just make sure, though, you pop those back in so you're not going to see a big gap there. It has a double hinge on the knee. He has no foot articulation, at least no boot articulation. But you can hinge the feet back and forth this way. You can also rock them this way. And he does also have toe articulation as well. Unfortunately, though, you can see one of the problems as well. And this is only a problem that if you're going to be looking at the undersides of his feet. How many people are going to do this? You'll see that they've actually painted this part instead of actually using the plastic color of blue. It's not super jarring because, again, if you have the feet bent this way, like this, would you even be able to see it? I mean, I'm only showing you this in this review, that there's the gray on the underside. It's not, again, super jarring because you're probably never going to look at the figure like this. If you are, that's a little strange. Darkfather is a nice looking figure. I hope down the road, and fingers are only crossed on this guy's part, but I hope that we are going to be getting ourselves pair Robins. I could see myself buying probably one, maybe two. Okay, I could probably see myself buying maybe 4 of them, and I think they probably could go the same route that they did with the evil Robins. They probably could release different versions of the pair Robins with different facial expressions. You know, again, they have the bodies roughly about the same. That would be one good way of having people picking up the variants of pair Robins. And then you can get a couple of these and have them nicely displayed around Darkfather when you have them on your shelf. Whereas I may have had some issues with the Collect and Connect Bane, a previously looked at wave that we looked at on this channel, I don't really have as many issues when it came to the Darkfather. Not only does he put together and stay together a lot better than the Bane, but even though he doesn't have as much the paint, and one of the ongoing problems I have with this line is that they don't really have enough paint applications on these figures, it works still pretty good with Darkfather, because I really don't expect a whole lot of additional wash over top of it. Again, it's always appreciated the fact that they can do that, but I don't feel like while I'm looking at Darkfather, there's things that are lacking to the figure. Maybe the same feelings I had towards the Bane. I probably should have brought in the Bane even for some size comparisons. Obviously, I could probably tell you that Darkfather is a lot smaller of a figure. He still towers over the other ones that are in this figure line, this figure wave, the 4 figures that we looked at before, but he's not an overly bulky character. I don't think you really would want an overly bulky, dark side-sized Batman. I think the scaling of him works quite well with the 4 figures that we got from this set. Again, he could have probably included some accessories, something. Trading cards are kind of by now you just assume that a Build-A-Figure isn't going to come with his own dedicated trading card or display stand. But even if they had included an accessory, something, a sword, a gun, something that Darkfather could have wielded in his hands. He has these giant mauling-sized hands, but he doesn't really have anything to fit into his hands, maybe short of Batman or Superman's skull. Really, though, like the idea of maybe being down the road a release of a pair Robin, maybe 1, 2, 3 of them. Again, I think there's an opportunity similar to what they did with the evil Robins. Just give us different versions of the pair Robins. I don't know if everyone's going to be as interested in pair Robins as they were as the evil Robins, But yeah, give it an opportunity where collectors can go out and try to track down the different variants of Para-Robins. That seems to be something that McFarlane likes to do. Overall, again, nice looking figure. And it's also a case too where I think the payoff was worth it. Sometimes though, while you're building these figures, you either don't want to pick up any of these figures because you don't liking some of them, but the end result, of course, is that you're building a figure at the end, or sometimes at the end, you're building a figure and you're like, is this it? I don't feel like that's the case with Darkfather. He ends up being a nice looking figure, properly scaled and well painted, and he's going to look great on my shelf. What do you guys think of the Darkfather? And just out of curiosity, have you guys been collecting the Darkfather wave? If you have so, let me know down below in the comment section. And what your favorite figures were from this wave. For me, it's Robin King and the Wonder Woman. Then it's the Batman. Then it's the Superman. But let me know down below in the comments section. If you guys are also new to this channel and enjoying all the content you're seeing, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. You can also as well turn the bell notification on. And you can also as well make sure you're coming back to this channel Monday to Friday, because there's always going to be new videos popping up. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.